Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. I love you.
I know.
May the Force be with you.
Star Wars Rogue One was directed by Gareth Edwards and it stars Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, and Alan Tudyk. Before we get into this, can we talk about how lucky we are? We have a Star Wars movie coming out every single year until, like, the day we die.
Star Wars, give me those Star Wars. Please don't let Star Wars come to an end.
So I guess only time will tell if that's a blessing or a curse. Rogue One is very interesting because it's the very first big screen Star Wars spin-off film. If you don't count the Ewok films or the Clone Wars. But this one's better than all of those. Put together. Though that's not saying much. Just in case you've been living under a rock, or in a coma under a rock, this film follows the events leading up to the original Star Wars, aka A New Hope, if you'd ask millennials. So it's not a sequel to the newest sequel, but a sequel to the prequels while being a prequel to the original trilogy. Yes. Basically in this film we follow the ragtag band of rebels responsible for getting the Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance, essentially kicking off the original trilogy. When this film was first announced, I was hoping for either a fun Ocean's 11-esque heist flick, or a dark, gritty, Saving Private Ryan-esque war film. And this one leans a little bit more towards the Private Ryan side. It was extremely nice to see the Star Wars universe from a totally different viewpoint. It's the first movie in 40 years that it's the war aspect of Star Wars, which was really nice. Sure, in the original films there were the large battles, but you never felt like the main protagonists were in peril. They were just really cool backdrops for the story. One thing this film really had going for it was the fact that there weren't any powerful Jedi characters in the good guy roster. By making us follow just normal, on-the-ground soldiers that don't have any powers, we really felt the weight of the war between the Imperials and the Rebels for the very first time. Stormtroopers actually did something in this movie. They seemed like an actual threat as opposed to just a punchline for shooting things very poorly. And the Death Troopers, the new Death Troopers in this movie, they're pretty neat. I like those Death Troopers. I also just can't get over how much I liked the type of story they were telling with this film. And I agree with most critics that how the Death Star plans were acquired isn't really a story we needed to be told, but it was a fun one. Hiring Gareth Edwards as the director of this movie was a really smart move by Disney, for the most part. Gareth Edwards has previously directed the latest American Godzilla movie and a little indie flick called Monsters, both involving stories with grand scale, but told from the little guy's point of view. Which is really what this movie is. It's a big Star Wars story, but told from the side character's point of view. Seeing these big battles from the grunt's point of view is pretty much the shit. Watching our main protagonist run away from a giant AT-AT is just the coolest friggin' thing. The battle sequences, especially in the last act, were pretty much the best part of this film. They were intense and gritty, and oh god did they work. This movie harkens back to like the old Battlefront video games, remember those? Not the new ones that EA has where they just want your money, but like the original ones where you're just sitting around with friends and you're in these intense battles, you're in those battles. It reminds me of that, and also the 2D Clone Wars series, where you just feel the war aspect of it. It's a war movie set in the Star Wars universe, which is exactly as cool as you think it is. So much passion and dedication was painstakingly put into it. It's true to the series as it could be, while showing us something totally new. The stormtroopers we see aren't the shiny, fancy stormtroopers patrolling the Death Star. These are the grunts who are on the front lines. They're dirty, hardened, and exhausted. There was also a perfect blend of CG effects and practical effects. Everything, from the creatures to the ships, just fit perfectly into the Star Wars universe without it feeling clunky. There was one CG usage that threw me quite a bit, but I'll get to that. I found the concept of the film to be awesome. The battle scenes were great, the directing was done masterfully. Everything in this worked. Really, the biggest flaw in this film was the writing and the characters. Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones, is our main protagonist in the film. And based on the trailers, I was hoping for a badass chick who plays outside the rules, but has a nice story arc where she finds meaning in the rebellion and becomes a better person. Sadly, we didn't get that. I don't know if it was the actress, or the writing, or just the editing of it, but I really didn't feel for this character. There was really nothing here for the audience to relate to or latch on to. As a character, she was just whatever the script needed her to be. Out of all the main cast, she was the least interesting, which really friggin' sucks considering she's our lead protagonist. Granted, she's not Hayden Christensen's Anakin.
I don't like sand.
I mean, there's that, I guess. Diego Luna plays the roguish rebel captain, Cassian Endar. Out of all the characters, I'd say he had the most depth, which, I mean, isn't really saying much. I really dug this character, because he was the perfect vessel to show how the rebels really didn't fight clean all the time. They got down and dirty every now and then. He was really the type of character that I wanted from this film. His morals were very gray, and unlike his teammates, he had somewhat of a background. I think we should also acknowledge and respect the fact that he's the only Hispanic Star Wars character. There's been Hispanic actors, like with Oscar Isaac as Poe, but he's the only Hispanic character. He's the only person who plays just a straight up Hispanic dude, which is really cool. And they didn't go over the top with it. It wasn't like stereotypically Hispanic. He was just a Hispanic dude in the Star Wars universe. I really respected that. Ip Man's Donnie Yen is probably the coolest in the group. I can't pronounce his name, so I call him the Blind Force Master guy. He's blind, he kicks ass, he's pretty awesome. He's really fun to watch, and his few fight scenes are really great. But other than the exterior, he's awesome. There's nothing to his character. He's just an awesome dude, which, as much as I hate to say it, the coolness of this character kind of makes up for it. Then there's the big guy that's kind of his partner, and he's really there to just be the cool muscle of the group. He was cool, and I liked him, but that was really only because I liked the concept of him. He was a cool idea. But other than that, I don't know, he was good. He did his job. Nothing more than that. Same thing goes for the young pilot guy. You kind of get a feel for some kind of background with him, but it really wasn't much. It just kind of sucks that you have an ensemble movie, but the ensemble just isn't really much of one. Then there's the fan favorite droid played by Alan Tudyk, K2SO. Let me just say, I love this droid, and I love Alan Tudyk. From Firefly to Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, he's great in everything that he's ever done. And I'm really glad he's in the Star Wars universe now. I gotta say, I love this droid. You know, he was just a solid character. He was sassy with a heart of gold, and sadly, I kind of want an action figure of him. You know, I want to go out to the store and I want to buy a K2SO. So, yeah. You win this round, Disney. Mads Mikkelsen is in this film. And because I didn't know much going into this movie, I won't go too deep into who he is exactly. You might know him as Hannibal from Hannibal, or most recently, Caligulus in Doctor Strange. Anyway, he's an actor with great range, and this character didn't really need that, but it was welcomed. Then, of course, there was Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. What will you become? For the first time ever, there was a character who originated in one of the Star Wars spin-off shows, in a Star Wars film. Unless you count Boba Fett and the holiday special. Yeah, no, seriously, go look it up. Boba Fett originated in the holiday special of Star Wars. Look it up. But I think it's really cool. For kids now who are watching like Rebels and Clone Wars, who are growing up with those things, how they get to see a character from those shows end up in a big screen movie, how they get to see Easter eggs from those shows wind up in movies like this. I just think that's really neat, that we're still, you know, giving Easter eggs to the kids now, and it's not just applying to us grown men who just get really happy over Easter eggs. It's for kids too. I like it. Granted, Forrest Whitaker's performance in this was a little weird. It was pretty weird. I don't know much about this character, outside of this movie, so I've never seen the shows. I don't know who he is outside of this, so I don't know if he was playing it right, that this is just a weird character, or if he just played the character really weird. Either way, I found it a little too distracting. Last but certainly not least is Ben Mendelsohn as the new villain, Orson Krennic. As far as Star Wars villains go, he wasn't like the head honcho, mysterious badass that Darth Vader is, but he didn't have to be. He was very slimy and conniving, which absolutely worked for me. I like this actor a lot, and I had only previously seen him in a little indie western called Slow West, where he played a very similar character. I just think it was really fun to have a main villain who wasn't like top level like Darth Vader, in this movie where the protagonists aren't really top level like Luke Skywalker. He reminded me a lot of Christoph Waltz as Hans Landa in Inglourious Basterds. I normally don't do this with reviews, but to really understand my rating for this film, I might have to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Star Wars Rogue One, which, I mean, at this point, with as many things as I've seen on it, and how much money they've made at the box office already, you've probably already seen it. But anyway, if you don't want to know any spoilers, skip ahead to this time. I'm sure I'll figure it out later. Gone yet? Can I get into the spoilers? Did the losers leave? Is this the cool kids table now? Okay. So yeah, everyone dies. This being a Disney Star Wars film, I really respected that, because everyone in this film is going on a suicide mission. So it only makes sense that they all die. And I respect the balls that Disney had to make that happen. And actually, the original script of this film had a few characters living, only because they thought Disney wouldn't let them. But then they showed it to the producers, and the producers were like, yeah, no, it makes sense that everyone would die. I don't know why you didn't just kill everyone off. That being said, I really wish the characters were a little bit more fleshed out, because then the death scenes would have had a little bit more of an impact. We would have actually felt something. Because during some of the death scenes, it's just like, oh, well, he was kind of cool. Sucks that he's dead. Granted, a few of them were well done, but they just didn't have the weight that they really needed. That's really my big beef with the film, is the character depth. But when a movie is character driven, and it doesn't have much character depth, that's a really big beef. Yes, I'm aware of Catalyst. I am aware that there is a prequel novel that goes a little bit more into each character's backstory. But I think with a movie, we shouldn't have to do any extra work other than watching the movie to get character depth. To like feel something for a character, I shouldn't have to read a book before I walk into the theater. I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't want to work any more than I have to. I like movies. I don't like books. Fuck you, movie. I will say though, I enjoyed how the plot didn't hold your hand. Many movies now just assume the audience is stupid, and they walk you through every single aspect. And there's so much exposition that it's just too much. So many movies are just so full of exposition scenes, and this didn't really have it. It kept moving, and if you didn't pick up on it, it would leave you behind until you figured it out and caught up. Again, I really enjoyed the concept of this movie, but I do think there were a lot of missed opportunities. Like, you know the shot in the trailer where they're getting ready, they're dressed up in their Imperial clothes? I really wanted there to be like this big scene of them having to sneak through this Imperial place and have to pretend to be something, and then they get figured out, and then there's the big battle. They just kind of entered. They just kind of walked in the door, and then they messed up, and then everything went to hell. There's so much more you could have done with that. There's so many little scenes like that throughout the film that they could have just done a little bit more with. And it's just sad to see a missed opportunity like that. But it was still a fun movie. So let's talk about the scene that we all know was going to be in this movie. The Vader scene. Scenes. It's one or two scenes, and the trailer doesn't really tell you it's going to be much more than that. I see a lot of people getting upset that there wasn't much Darth Vader in this movie, but that was never promised to us. He's in it as much as he needs to be in it. If not, maybe even more than we needed. I think the first scene that he's in, where he's telling jokes and stuff to Krennic, I don't think we needed that. I don't think we needed that at all. I think it would have been really cool if we just got that last scene. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. The scene where he's in the hallway and he just kills all those dudes. How cool would it have been if like they get the plans and then they're trying to get the plans to Leia, and as they're just like hurrying and rushing onto the ship, we just see and we're like, oh shit, and then everything happens. How cool would that be? Just to have that one scene of Vader kicking ass. It'd be amazing. I want that. Then there's CG Kush. You know, CGI Peter Cushing. It was too much. We didn't need a character that was entirely CG. I understand he was supposed to be a character in this, but why do we get an actor from Mon Mothma, but we have like a CGI robot for Peter Cushing? I don't get it. It was too much. It would be cool if it was just that one shot of him looking in the window and then we see his reflection. That would be nice because it wasn't too much. But then when we see more of his face and he's like an actual character in this movie, it was too distracting to watch how much CG was working there. And then Leia was spooky. We didn't need that. We just use that shot of her from behind. We don't need spooky Leia face. Yes, it has flaws. But in the end, the big question is this movie still entertaining? Hell yes. This movie brings me back to like playing with my Star Wars action figures. You know, just this is everything. We have everything we want here. The X-Wings, the AT-ATs, the little characters, the explosions everywhere. You can tell the filmmakers felt that way too. They have all these action figures they get to play with and they just do it. It just feels like the biggest budgeted fan film you've ever seen. And because it's such a fun experience and because the action is so good and you have a lot of fun watching it. It's just really refreshing to have something new. All of it just feels like something new in the Star Wars universe. Even the music is really well done. It's the first time John Williams hasn't been able to do a score just because of his health issues. But this new score, it just adds something a little bit new, which is really cool to say, considering I've grown up with all of the movies, the TV shows, the video games, so I've heard the same few songs over and over and over. And granted, it's great music, but it's just really nice to have something that's a little bit new. And honestly, I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Force Awakens. Frankly, because of the originality. Force Awakens was really, really good, but it did rehash a lot of New Hope. And because this one just felt so different from everything else we've seen with the Star Wars movies, I enjoyed it so much more. So I am going to give Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, an 8.3 out of 10. Anyway, thank you for watching. We're back from, like, Christmas break, I guess. I kind of took a Christmas break and didn't tell you about it, for which I'm very sorry. But I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. Anyway, now that, like, the holidays are over, now that busy work season's over, we'll be back, and we'll be uploading stuff continually. I'm also happy to announce that I'm going to be starting up a new series of reviews where I'm going to review all of the movies that I think are going to be nominated for Oscars. So we all have a better idea of what the Oscars are going to be like this year. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. You know, it's basically just me reviewing the Oscar bait flicks of the year, which is going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, as always, watch movies, my friends.
To be in the empire today. It's great to be in the empire today.